the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, right here at WNJC 1360, and of course, around the world on the internet with LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com, American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. We are everywhere. We're everywhere. And joining me today as my co-host is the Patriot from the Hoosier state of Indiana, my very good friend, J.D. Munier. J.D., welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, it's great to be with you again, Rick. 1 week later, boy, a lot has gone on.
Yes, and J.D., I'm glad you haven't spent any time in Orlando lately. Orlando seems to be a place that people need to stay away from, between the massacre at the Pulse nightclub, the death of the singer who was on The Voice. And by the way, J.D., she was from here locally, and also the tragic news of that 2-year-old baby being snatched by an alligator at Disney World. Orlando's had its share of tragedy.
It really has. I want to offer a little good news.
Okay.
Got a lot more to talk about.
Yep.
Just moments ago, the Federal Reserve said no to any rate hike, at least for now. And I'm thinking, well, a little bit of sanity coming out of Washington, just a little bit. I mean, there's just no way. Obama's, I feel, unemployment figures are so phony. He's the only president never to allow us to reach 3% growth. Mm-hmm. And to try raising rates right now would be horrible on our very tepid, weak economy, and it's been that way for years.
And, of course, J.D., we should remind our listeners from where you are coming from. You are in the mortgage business. So if anyone should know, it should be you.
Well, yes. Been doing this for about 10, 11 years. And yeah, it does not help in any shape or fashion for the Fed to go out raising rates right now. Mm-hmm. And so maybe a little bit of good news on the economic front that way. And certainly not from the numbers that Obama's creating and has ever created in 7.5 years. But, you know, you're right. This past week's been amazing down there in Orlando. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Christine and I listened and watched Hillary, first of all. And so finally, she made the fact that she said, yeah, I could say the word radical terrorism, jihadist terrorism, radical Islamic terrorist. I could say that, she said. And right away, Christine and I looked at each other and said, man, she sounds just like that What Difference? You know, it sounds just like the What Difference Does It Make speech before Benghazi Congressional Committee hearing. She just sounded in the same tone. Everything looked the same. And then yesterday, you know, Obama, everybody's tweeting. I mean, he was very much in the same spirit. He said, and toned down, we don't need to talk about radical Islam. It does us no good and wouldn't change anything. Everybody heard that speech. But it's that same kind of elite, spirit of we know better, and what difference does it make? You know, get off this.
Well, but, JD, this is what the Democrats are running from. They don't want to talk about radical Islam. They don't want to talk about the debt. They don't want to talk about the tanking economy. That what they're interested in talking about, they're talking about same-sex bathrooms. That's real important to them, same-sex bathrooms. That's what they want people to talk about. But in the meantime, people are dying. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs. 8 years. We've had 8 years of this, J.D. Manier. We've had 8 years of this administration not knowing what to do about this economy. So they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about radical Islam. They don't want to talk about the fact that the only jobs that have been created in the last 7 or 8 years are burger flipping jobs. Hey, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about high taxes. They don't want to talk about we want to raise your taxes more. No, they want to talk about same-sex bathrooms.
Well, no doubt about that. And I know I talked to you just a while ago, but maybe finally Obama's chickens are coming home to roost. I mean, he just appointed a lady who 2 years ago was in Syria. I think her last name is like Lala. I heard on radio earlier today. Mm-hmm. But she's in part of a Department of Homeland Security subcommittee. She's a new member there. And she has gone viral a number of times on social media praising 9/11. What happened in America, she says, was a good thing.
Unbelievable.
So, she's a Syrian Muslim, and so her subcommittee comes out with these recommendations that we purge the words radical Islamic terrorism. Those words, we don't need those in the vernacular.
Let's not warn people where the threat is. Let's not warn people where the danger is. Let's do this politically correct thing and make like everybody is going to like us if we just, we'll just say, they're not that bad. They're not that, there's only a few of them. There's only about 10% of them that are really radical. But when you look at there are over a billion Muslims, if you want to say only 10% are radical, which I think is a lot higher, that's a whole lot of people out there, J.D. Manier, who want to kill us, who want to destroy our way of life, who want to force us to think and act and believe as they do.
Oh, amen. And honestly, they do have consequences. What difference it makes is strongly that there's strategic, military, legal ramifications. But this purging of the term and the phraseology is why our hands. Part of the reason our hands have been so tied. I mean, think about Omar Mateen was up on the terrorist watch list a couple of times, and then they took him down off of it.
As were the Zainayev brothers. You remember the Boston bombers?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the same with them. The same with some of the 9/11 hijackers. I mean, J.D., what happened? Unfortunately, J.D., every time something like this happens, where you have an idiot that goes on a rampage and kills people, be it in San Bernardino, California, be it in Orlando, Florida, be it in Paris, France, the consequence is the government sees it as an opportunity to take more of our freedoms away from us instead of doing the right things, instead of doing the things that would prevent this from happening. And I'm talking about profiling now. They do nothing because it's easier to take the rest of our freedoms away from us than to actually solve the problem. And I'll tell you another way you solve the problem. You destroy them, J.D. Manier. You absolutely destroy them. Every time one of them pulls off something like this, you go after 100 or 1,000 of them. And sooner or later, they'll get the word. They'll get the message that this is not good business. Sooner or later, the rest of the quote-unquote moderate and peaceful Muslims will come down on the radicals and say, no more of this, because every time you do this, we have to suffer the consequences. These surgical wars don't work, J.D. Manier. These surgical policies don't work. You've got to get the rest of their population, the ones that aren't radical, as I said, the peaceful ones, the moderate ones, they are the ones that have to stand up against their radical brethren. And with that, JD, we got to go to our break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with JD Manier and Rick Trader. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. JD and I'll be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm lefty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
We're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net. Or at midnight, tune in to redstatetalkradio.com. Or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You just need to call that number, 832-999-1199. JD, as you just heard our recent commercial rack advertising for Sharon Engel running for U.S. Senate. Well, I've got some very bad news for our listeners. I have some very bad news for America. Unfortunately, Sharon was not successful in her bid to become the Republican nominee to run for U.S. Senate in Nevada to take that Harry Reid seat. Instead, Republicans out there elected a guy by the name of Joe Heck. Joe is a congressman. And by the way, Joe Heck votes more with Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid than just about any other Republican in the United States House of Representatives. Joe Heck votes with the Democrats 62% of the time. JD, all the time we hear, the problem's Washington, the problem is Washington. JD, I'm here to tell you today, I don't see the problem as being in Washington. I see the problem between the ears of the voters who voted for somebody like Joe Heck. Is that what you really want? You want a Washington insider political hack? I thought you people out there wanted better. I thought that the problem was Washington and Washington insiders. And I think I'm targeting this to our audience who listens to us in Las Vegas, Nevada, because we reach out there. You lost a terrific opportunity. You lost a terrific opportunity to help yourself by not voting for Sharon Engel. I know Sharon Engel. Sharon Engel is a friend of mine. I know that Sharon Engel would have the best interest of the citizens of the United States of America at heart. Sharon Engel wouldn't be one of these political hacks. But so be it. The voters get their way. And as I said, the problem's not in Washington. The problem is looking right at you when you look in the mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to change things. You really want to change things. Then don't keep electing the problem. Don't keep re-electing the problem time after time after time, year after year after year. Time's yours.
You're right on. You're right on, Rick. I've known Sharon for 4 years, and she's a consummate patriot. And
patriot, Christian, conservative,
she's written books. She's studied and researched the issues to the farthest degree, and we missed out a lot. It's the disinformation that the media puts out there that's causing part of this. And but we frightened it again today, Rick. McConnell, Rand Paul. Paul Ryan, McConnell, Lindsey Graham. Let's keep adding to it. Romney, all coming against Trump's statements about what happened down there in Orlando and what Obama has been saying. And I've reviewed time and time again in the last 48 hours what Trump has said. They're very measured and they make common sense to Americans. That's why he gathered more votes than any Republican in the history of our country in this primary season, because he's talking common sense. But our establishment people, it's shameful. It's shameful what these guys are saying. And we need a wholesale cleanup. And I was hoping and praying we could get that out there in Nevada. We'll just have to try again. But this ISIS, they started out just 3,000 killed a year, but they're up to 28,000 dead a year. That's the greatest death accumulations in any theater of war since World War II across the globe. And you've got this president and the Democrats the words, Obama, listen to his words in the last year or year and a half. He goes, well, we can contain them. Well, our country, we'll be able to absorb this. They're the JV squad. People are dying. I mean, you had a great rant earlier. People are dying because of Islamic radical terrorists that have not been purged, and it wouldn't take much, and it wouldn't take that long. And President Trump could do that. And here we have the solution, and we got people like, once again, Paul Ryan. Just sad. This guy is such a waffler. And of course, Romney, they ran together and lost in 2012. But then Lindsey Graham and others. Of course, the Washington Post wants to run those names and those figures up with a flagpole. We understand that. Trump said, hey, Washington Post, you're not even invited on my jet anymore. I don't even want you guys coming to our press conferences until you get your act together, until you start speaking some truth. But it's a sad day in America. And I think like the Bible says, let's look inside, like you just said. Voters, look inside your ears. That's why we have this radio show, to tell the truth. And don't leave the media lies, the liberal lies that coming at you in every direction. But we're going to fight on, Rick. Got some great guests. Can we talk about them today?
We actually don't have time, JD. We got to go to a break. You and I went a little long, but we'll catch up on that. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with JD Manier and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. And on the other side, we'll be talking with Dr. John Shockey, former Reagan Bush speechwriter, talking about this year's presidential debates and why we would see Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
You've heard Paul Dilts playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage, because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, www.ccrsnetwork.com, www.ccrshow.com. Or in the mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. Or at 1 p.m., log on to www.roarradio.net. And at 9 p.m., log on to highplaindailynews.com. You can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest, Dr. John Shosky, is a former speechwriter for Presidents Reagan and Bush and is president of Roncalli Communications, Inc. He's been a professional speechwriter, consultant, coach, and trainer for 30 years. He's written almost 3,000 speeches for government officials, political candidates, and public interest advocates, and this amounts to over 7 million words on the public record. In addition, Dr. Shosky is the author of 2 books, Speaking to Lead and Words of Our Time, published in 2012, both by Fight Back Publishing and from London. So we want to thank you again, Dr. Shosky, for coming on the Conservative Commando radio show. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always good to be with you guys, and greetings to you and hello to all of your listeners. I have to tell you, every time I come on, you always have me come on after that great Tito Puente song performed by Santana, Oye Como Va. And it's always humbling to come on after that because that's a masterpiece. And Tito Puente was an amazing guy. But I guess we're here to talk about other things. I just want to compliment you on your music.
Well, let me just ask you. You and I briefly spoke yesterday about the show here today. Any masterpieces that you've seen in this? We concluded the primary season here, even this week. And, what was your take? And share with our radio listeners this primary season and the rhetoric that went forth.
Okay, I'd be glad to do that. Your listeners could tell you as easily as I could whether there was a masterpiece speech or not. There wasn't. And none of the speeches are memorable in any great length or visionary in any way. And that's something that hopefully will change over the next few weeks. Somebody needs to explain to us in very compelling detail where we're going to go over the next 4 years. And I always say that one of the great things that President Reagan did with his vision of the shining city on the hill was he presented a vision that people wanted. There was a gravitational pull to it. And so you'd sit and you'd listen to that and you'd say, I want that. That's what I want over the next 4 years. And that's what we need to be looking for, is something like that. Rhetoric changes over time. I mean, the kind of rhetoric that would have worked, say, at the beginning of the 20th century isn't what's going to work now, or anything even maybe 10 years ago. What we've seen is a condensation of message into 140 characters. We've seen people violate what had been traditional norms of public discourse. The rhetoric has been very personal. It's been very provocative, and that's part of the changing nature of the rhetorical revolution that's going on right now. I think a lot of news stories have concentrated on how the rhetoric's different from the past, and it always will be. But what we need to do is to look and see whether or not it works. And by works, I mean, did it connect with the listening audience? Did it have impact? Is it memorable? Does it have that gravitational pull that I was talking about? And those are the kinds of standards that I think we're going to use in the weeks ahead to determine whether or not, from a rhetorical standpoint, either of the candidates has something to offer the American people that really will give us a vision about where we're going over the next 4 years.
Well, if you back up 150 years ago, Lincoln said, let the people know the facts, and the nation will be free. Do you think this election season voters have been, and then now in the fall are going to pay more attention to the facts or to soaring rhetoric?
Well, first of all, let me just talk about the facts for a moment. Again, your listeners would probably say the same thing. The facts have been very selective with everyone. And one of the facts that I think bears attention is the fact that so much of what has happened has been media-driven. And that's worked for the media and against the media. I'll give you an example. When the early debates took place, they were sponsored by media organizations like CNN or Fox. And so you had to show up. They were going to have a debate, so you had to be there. And the media could run stories about the debate for a week or so before and then for a week or so after. And so it gave the media plenty of content. And then one of the things that took place was, with Trump being as provocative as he was, the media gained extra stories. There was more to talk about. And the more they talked about him, the more, that worked into his overall strategy. And the media and Trump became linked in a way, not always good for either one of them, but there was a linkage there where Trump was able to use the media's disdain for him to advantage, and the media could criticize Trump and get people to read their articles, but every time they criticized him, they made him the center of attention, and it ended up working for him. So we've watched a singular fact take place as part of this rhetorical revolution, which is that the media has become even more of a player in this election cycle than they have been in the past. And I know that there are people out there who are listening, and they're going to say, well, no, that's really not true. But I would ask them to go back and to look at the stories and the timing, the sources of those stories, the whole Megyn Kelly thing, all of that, and ask themselves, did this kind of thing ever take place in the past? And what would have happened if this had taken place in the Kennedy-Nixon election, for example? Wouldn't have. But now the stage is set. And, of course, part of it has to do with the fact that we've just had a presidency that's been run by celebrity. He started with the nominating convention and having that big extravaganza at Mile High Stadium, Invesco Stadium out in Denver, with the fake Doric columns and the 70,000 people and all of that, ratcheting everything up to the status of celebrity. And now, once that standard has been set, you've got people who more and more look for people in the news. They want to be part of the celebrity culture. And here's the result. We now have one candidate who has been a reality TV show star, a central player. And then we've got another one who wants to bring back the Clinton years one more time and use all of that as she has been using and as Bill Clinton has been using for many years, their celebrity status in order to bring in attention, power, money, all those other things. So we're watching something that's pretty incredible. Now, in terms of Lincoln's statement about whether or not we're more interested in facts than values, I think, again, the answer is selectively. It's a little bit of both. Sometimes there's a fact that's just really startling to us and requires us to reflect. Orlando is a good case in point. On the other hand, there are times where we say to ourselves, well, what kind of people are we? What kind of values do we want to uphold? What kind of country is this? I think they're incredibly relevant questions, particularly in an age where the government has assumed more and more power. There's an old statement by Lincoln that I used to use a lot when I first started off as a writer. I worked in the Reagan administration. I was working for a cabinet member who really liked this particular statement. Lincoln said, let the government be the choice of last resort. And what he meant by that was, if people like you and I can work out our problems, great. And the government should only come in rarely, sparingly. That the use of government should be highly limited. And I think that that's something that people need to hear even more today. That's my own view. And a conservative message, for example, is one that needs to be sold, not trashed or run away from. The country, as some people have said, is moving left. But I think with the right voice, that the message to move to the right can not only be compelling and persuasive, but again, in my view, I think that would be the right way to go. I'm really worried that the next 4 years won't be like that.
Dr. Shockey, we are coming up against a hard break. Can you just hold with us for a couple minutes, a commercial break, and we want to continue these thoughts.
Okay.
This has been J.D. Manier with your host, Rick Trader, coming to you live from the Concerted Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, and AM/FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding. to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage, because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, check out our website, www.ccrsnetwork.com, www.ccrshow.com. Or in the mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., you can log on to www.roarradio.net. And at 9 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. Now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're talking with Dr. John Shosky, former speechwriter for President Reagan and President Bush. And welcome back to the show, John.
Well, J.D., it's always a pleasure.
Do we know if Donald Trump has a speechwriter or a speech coach?
You know, I'm certain that he must, but I don't know that for a fact. I've often closed my eyes and wondered what it must be like to write for him. And my guess is he pretty much knows what he wants to say.
John, let me jump in for a minute.
Yeah.
It's interesting you should bring up this point, and sorry to interrupt, J.D., but just as you were saying this, what was going on in my mind is, what would John write for Donald Trump?
Well, I've closed my eyes, and I've thought about that, too. Writing for him must be very difficult. And what I mean by that is if you just parrot back what he tells you in the speechwriter meetings, you know, that may be okay. But if you try to do something that's really assertive or groundbreaking, pushing the envelope, it's always going to be a roll of the dice. He's probably going to like some of it and probably not like other bits of it. What I would do if I could ever be in that position, at this moment in time, right now, the next few weeks, I would do everything that I could to target and here's where your campaign really comes in handy. If the campaign tells you, here's where the swing voters are, then I would do everything that I could to write for those swing voters. I wouldn't worry about the voters that are going to vote for Hillary. I wouldn't worry about the people that are going to vote for me no matter what. But I would target the people that are going to determine the election. I saw a figure this morning that says that there's probably about 2 million swing voters in the United States right now. Those would be the people who will decide the election. Those would be the people that I'd be talking to. And I'd be talking about the issues that matter to them, and I'd be talking about a way of linking the conservatives or whoever is going to vote for me with those people in order to be able to formulate a coalition. I wouldn't worry too much about always saying the right thing that the media is going to agree with, that, you know, because part of where he is and where he's going is by talking about these things, the forbidden things that they don't want to talk about, saying the forbidden stuff that you know, some people don't want to hear. But instead, what I would do is I'd be very focused, and I'd be arm in arm, in harness with the campaign manager to be able to present a vision that would appeal to those voters that are still undecided. There are a lot of people out there who've already made up their minds, but that's not everybody. And we know from the polls that the people who still need to make up their mind are going to be the decisive voters. So those voters, and probably in about 8 of the swing states, are going to be the subject of the if I were writing, would be the subject of the next few weeks. I'd try to present a Trump that is especially strong on the economy. People are so worried about the economy, they should be, and they want to know that the next 4 years aren't going to be like the last 8. They can't hang on by their fingernails for another 4 years. Things have got to get better, and they need to know that Trump can deliver on that. And that's, I think, where he could be really strong, arguing from a business perspective, arguing from a job creation perspective, and showing that if he were elected, that the economy would respond instantly, but also over the long term through jobs program, work creation, infrastructure, you know, all of the other things that he could be saying that would be welcome to the vast majority of people who find themselves in economic difficulty.
You know, John, with the last name of Trader, T-R-A-D-E-R, like I have, if I close my mind and try to think of the ideal job other than doing what I'm doing, is to be the general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. I probably would give a couple body parts or two to be the general manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. How bad would you like to be the speechwriter for Donald Trump? Well, or do you think that is a can't-win job?
Well, when I worked for the government in the past, it was always either on the cabinet level, and, you know, there's something to that. Cabinet members speak in a particular kind of leaderly way. Or I worked in White House Public Affairs or the Executive Office of the President or someplace like that. And if you could write on that level where the words turn into action, where the words determine policy, if you could write on that level, that would be fantastic.
Well, you work for a guy like that, I think. At least I would look at it that way in President Ronald Reagan. Am I right or wrong about that?
You know, well, let me say a couple of things about that. If you let me, I'd like to make a few points.
Sure.
The first point is that Reagan was well served by his staff. The speechwriters that he had around him, like Peggy Noonan and Pat Buchanan and, you know, people like that. I mean, there's a long list of incredibly talented people. They were high octane. And one reason that they could be so good was because, as George Shultz and other people have pointed out, Reagan came in with a lot of written material already, and so you know what he wanted to say and you know where he wanted to go. So I think that is something that would be very hard to duplicate, but that was a big advantage. Number two, Reagan always wanted to heal through his speeches, and He didn't want to divide. You can see the difference with the last 7 years. Go back to any of the Obama speeches. They're always us versus them speeches. It's the rhetoric of division. And if you could have somebody who could come in incredibly, persuasively, use language to heal division, bring the country together, I think that would be timely. That's exactly what history needs right now. The third point, I'd like to quote the former French president, Francois Mitterrand. He said something about Ronald Reagan that I think is really true. He said, Ronald Reagan had communion with the American people. I'm going to repeat that so your listeners don't miss it. Ronald Reagan had communion with the American people. When Reagan stood up and started talking, he was one of them, and they were him, and the division between speaker and audience disappeared. Reagan was magical in that sense. And what we need is the kind of leadership where we feel that it's not the president having a celebrity party at the White House, but it's the president who's one of us, and we're part of him in a way. And the person who is able to unite the country and become the personification of that unification will be really an important figure in history too. A figure like, say, Thatcher or Reagan or Bush 41 or John Paul II, or someone like that, someone who really stands out. And the last thing that I'd like to point out about President Reagan, if I may, is that he always wanted the speeches to have hope. So when you look at the future, you say, okay, that's a possible world, and that's the world that I want. Not what we've got now, but what we could have. And he was able to sell that vision. If you think about the importance of that and the credibility of that, that may be the centerpiece of any speech, is where are we going and how are we going to get there? Do I want to be part of that? Is it workable, practical, desirable to be able to do something like that? I think Ronald Reagan's speeches were so amazing. And
I'll never forget the Challenger speech. I mean, to me, that Challenger speech was just the right words at the right time. Dr. Janshowski, we got to go in a minute, but I do have this final question for you about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, rhetoric of division or in communion with the American people?
Well, it doesn't need to be an either-or thing. It is a rhetoric of division at the moment, but it may not be over the next few weeks. And I say that reservedly because for a lot of people, it's not division. What they want is they want a new kind of politics. And so they see this rhetoric not as divisive as much as it is changing, historically changing. And so what they're hoping for is over the next 4 years, we're not going to have a repeat of the last 8. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to change the political system to be more responsive. So they may not see it as division. They may see it as something that historically manifests itself.
Dr. Janshowski, we got to go, but let me just say this. When we have you on and we start talking about Ronald Reagan, to me it just makes solid in my mind what kind of leader I would like to have just one more time in my lifetime, just once more in my lifetime. Somebody like a Ronald Reagan, somebody who could look for the good things in America. Someone, as you said, would be in communion with America. I would really love to have that just one more time in my life.
I think the world needs it, not just you and I for our daily existence, but I think the world needs that kind of direction and hope for the challenges that it faces in the years to come.
Not to say anything other than that's one of the reasons why I created this show, is I'd somehow, somewhere, would love to find that type of person. As John Adams said, we need leaders that will put the country ahead of party, politics, and personal embellishment. And I really think of Ronald Reagan as that type of man. He loved America. He loved America. I want leaders that love America, who want the best for her. Dr. John, how do people follow your work?
Well, there's a website. It's called The Words of Our Time. That's all one phrase, thewordsofourtime.com. And I've got a couple of books out there if they'd like. But I think the most important thing is people keep listening to your radio station. And so I hope that anybody who's out there listening now keeps tuning in. And, at some point in the future, maybe you and I will talk again and we'll be able to communicate with those people. But in the meantime, there's just so much they're going to get off this radio program from you and from Rick. And so I welcome the opportunity to be on, but I also think that your listeners are well served.
Well, thank you for that, Dr. John Shosky. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You take care. God bless. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Muneer and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AMFM247.com. And on the other side, we're going to be speaking with Larry Pratt, President of Gun Owners of America. Be right back.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservatives Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, www.ccrsnetwork.com and www.ccrshow.com. Or in the mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. Or at 1 p.m., log on to www.roarradio.net. And at 9 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. Now you can listen to Concerted Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest, Larry Pratt, is Executive Director Emeritus of Gun Owners of America. GOA is a national grassroots organization representing more than 1.5 million Americans dedicated to promoting their Second Amendment freedom to keep and bear arms. Larry Pratt has appeared on numerous radio and TV programs such as CNN's Pierce Morgan, NBC's Today Show, CBS Good Morning America, CNN's Crossbury and Larry King Live, Fox Hannity and Holmes, and many others. He's debated Congressman James Traficant, Charles Rangel, Representative Carol McCarthy, Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey, and Vice President Al Gore, among others. His columns have appeared in newspapers across the country. Welcome back to the Concerted Commandos radio show, Larry.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
It is awesome, and you know, the Orlando Massacre, and I kind of titled this one, Orlando Massacre and the Democrats' worn-out playbook against the Second Amendment. You know, the New York Times, they had a piece today urging the creation of a federal tribunal who can take away Second Amendment rights. Can you comment on that?
Well, that's typical of the thinking of the liberal anti-gunner, who, first of all, dismisses out of hand that the Second Amendment means anything. He just does not believe that people should have or need to have firearms. Doesn't believe that we need to have them as a deterrent against tyranny, or that we need them because even day to day, there are times when people get attacked, even in their own homes, and they need their guns for self-defense. So the whole idea of civilian ownership of firearms is just, not only is it dismissed, but it's actually kind of frightening to the left, and they've really been pretty consistently at war. And so when something like this comes up, they're hoping that the blood of the victims will somehow anoint what they're doing to get rid of guns, somehow getting people to think that, well, gee, someday maybe it's the gun I've got in my safe that's going to be used in such a horrendous fashion. Of course, most people aren't capable of that kind of illogic, and so they're happily, so far, they've not been very successful in convincing the American people that they ought to disarm.
And we're thankful for that. So far, like you said, you know, by definition, criminals are lawbreakers, and they're going to break the law to secure weapons to suit their purposes. Why, in your opinion, Larry, why, like you were saying, how come the left doesn't get that basic thing there?
Well, I don't think they really are that bothered by criminals. They look at the real threat to society as the right-wing Christian conservative. That's what terrifies the left. And when you see their first assumption when this crime had been committed was that it had to have been some kind of right-wing Christian. You can just imagine him saying something like, "Oh, shucks, it wasn't what they wanted." I don't know when it finally dawns on them that, it was one of our guys. It was a registered Democrat, a very liberal guy, a homosexual, a Muslim. I mean, how many different victim groups can you get that Democrats love? And it was one of their guys. Darn.
Hey, today, also, it's been reported Trump is looking to meet with the NRA to discuss ways to keep criminals from obtaining firearms. You know, what steps do you think he should take on this issue, this Second Amendment issue?
Well, the one thing that I know I'm concerned about is there's been talk that they'll discuss the terror watch list and the idea of keeping people from buying guns whose names are on that list. That list is so unreliable that Ted Kennedy's name was on that list for a time when he was alive, and it took a U.S. senator with the stature of Ted Kennedy to get his name off after several weeks of trying. It wasn't the easiest. He didn't just pick up a phone and talk to the head of the TSA and say, "You've made a mistake, let's get with it." It took a long time for Senator Kennedy, a guy who at the time had real influence in the U.S. Senate. Well, for the rest of us, forget about it. It would be a disaster if that were to happen to an average person. This list yet is what we're being told is to be used to keep people from getting a gun. No, I don't think so. The whole concept of America, really one of the things that makes us distinctive and has made us a great country, is that something like that wouldn't happen to you unless you've been, at least at a minimum, charges have been pressed against you, and preferably a conviction. So the idea that simply anybody can put your name on the list, we don't know who, we don't know how, and it's tough grapes for you, buddy. I don't think so. I don't want to go there.
Hey, Larry, that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm afraid of the people that make up the list. Okay, who makes up the list? Just like Stalin.
If you find out, let me know.
Just like Joseph Stalin said, it's not those that vote that count, it's those that counts the votes. It terrifies me what criteria could there possibly be for putting people on the list? Yep. You know, right now they want to prosecute people who don't believe this garbage about man-made climate change. So maybe I'm one of those people. Maybe I should, in their opinion, be on that list?
It's a kind of limitless speculation as to what could happen when you take away the regular rules of due process. And that's what the fight now has become. Are we going to remain a nation of law, or are we just going to be a crapshoot as to how, you know, it's sort of like Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia. The ultimate in that kind of quote-unquote justice is in a novel that I'm told Kafka had written, where this guy's in jail, and he doesn't even know why he's in jail. He doesn't know who dropped the dime on him. He doesn't know what it might have been about. Mm-hmm. He's in jail.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're speaking with Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America. Larry, have you ever fired an AR-15?
So, many times.
Many times. I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because there's an article in the New York Daily News today. A writer went to Philadelphia to a gun shop to fire one. And he wrote a story. Firing an AR-15 is horrifying, menacing, and very loud. He says that it feels like a bazooka and sounds like a cannon. Wanted you to comment on that.
Well, it sounds like he's never had any experience with any of the above. Mm-hmm. Nor presumably was he wearing ear protectors. This sounds like a very ignorant person. And isn't it interesting? He had to travel to go even shoot one. Son, if you want to shoot one around me, we'll just go to a piece of empty land, and that's all we have to do. We don't have to go to another city at all, or I can take any of these firearms you're interested in to a range that can accommodate them. So he's clearly living in his little bubble, and the idea that he found the firing of the AR-15 terrifying tells me that he probably would find the firing of a .22 equally terrifying. The AR-15, and by the way, the .22 is like firing a cap gun. Mm-hmm. The AR-15 was designed so that soldiers could get right back on target because the kick had been minimized. The gun is it basically fires a less potent round. Thus, there's less kick and more ability of most shooters to be able to get right back on target. Mm-hmm. Admittedly, it might take a little practice, but it's that's what it was designed for. There are admittedly more powerful rifles that will kill you deader sooner than the AR-15. Although anybody that thinks the AR-15 is not deadly is making a serious mistake. But this guy clearly didn't know what he was talking about and had no experience to gauge or to compare what he was doing at that gun store in Philadelphia.
Hey, Larry, we got to go to a break. Could you hold on for us for just 2 minutes? I'd like to continue this conversation with you. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. We're everywhere. Our guest this segment is Larry Pratt from Gun Owners of America. We're talking about what went on in Orlando and the AR-15 and a whole bunch of stuff. We'll be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
We're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Manier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast or podcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 12 midnight. can please log on to redstatetalkradio.com, or you can hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Larry Pratt. He's from Gun Owners of America. Larry, thanks for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to be with you again.
Larry, I'm looking at a post. I have it up on my Facebook page right now if anyone would like to go and see it. It's a picture of Omar Martin, the guy that was the killer in the Orlando massacre. And I think it makes it a great point, the caption here. If this man doesn't represent all Muslims, why does he represent all gun owners?
Yeah, that's a very fair question. But, of course, the attack is against all gun owners by the anti-Second Amendment crowd, even while they're cautioning us not to go after all Muslims. I can say one thing. The Quran says that what this guy did was what Muslims are supposed to do. I know of no place that gun owners go for their normal instruction, certainly not to the founding fathers of this country, that say we ought to kill everybody.
Larry, this is JD again, and we're talking about that terror watch list. You said Ted Kennedy, whose name was on it, but remember Secretary Napolitano, Homeland Security Secretary, right out of the box, Obama's first administration, she had that list that included people who were pro-life, Dr. Dobson, and all kinds of Christian organizations. So I want you to talk about that, because that's a scary thing. It's who owns the list.
Yep. Well, from Napolitano right through to the current time, the left views the right as a terrorist waiting to explode into action. And anytime something like this happens, their first instinct is, what kind of right-winger was it? I think I mentioned the MSNBC talking head that had, early on, before anything was known, said, this might have been some Christian right-wing extremist. And, of course, that is a preposterous notion. While it could have been anybody, if we're going to be making statements about could have been, the most likely assumption was, no, not really a Christian. But we have a lot of other behavior from a lot of other kinds of people that would have certainly belonged way, way, way ahead in the line than to start by saying, we got to watch out for those Christians. What they don't understand, because most of these folks simply aren't Christian, that there's a very significant difference between Islam and Christianity in terms of, if you will, the business model of how you grow the business. Islam believes in killing other people, bringing them into submission. Islam means submission. Christianity believes in presenting the gospel so the Holy Spirit can change their hearts. Christianity believes in conversion. Islam believes in subversion.
Well, amen. All right, that's great. Speaking about Orlando, it could have been Goofy, Minnie, Mickey, Donald, if you're going to play those games.
Got to watch out for those guys.
Yeah.
Those cartoon characters are knocking off a lot of beer joints.
It's estimated about 2.5 million times a year. There are instances in America where people defend themselves using a firearm.
Yes.
How come the media doesn't take time to cover those heroic cases, as opposed to always covering the mass shootings which kill people?
Well, one principle, I think, in part explains that if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. And what's exciting, after all, about a 75-year-old retired woman living alone who produces her little .38 from her purse and scares the living daylights out of a bad guy, and he runs screaming for his money and leaves the old lady alone. That doesn't really make a lot of news. Now, if she's lying in a pool of blood and somebody leaves a Bible passage stuck to her throat, well, that would be a really great story, you got to admit. Except you'll never find that, because it just doesn't happen. So it's tough being in the news business these days. You've just got to make so much stuff up and hope that nobody catches you. Katie Couric found out that people can catch you.
Yes. Speaking about this year and these days, we see a vacancy on the Supreme Court. How important is it for pro-Second Amendment voters to turn out this year? In what ways is Gun Owners of America, let's get into the weeds a little bit. How are you involved in the political education on the precious constitutional right of gun ownership?
You've put your finger on the biggest concern that I think many of us have going into this election. We know what Hillary Clinton is going to give us. She's told us. She's going to put left-wing judges into as many vacancies as she's able during her time that she might be president. Donald Trump probably, we hope, would appoint very different kinds of people who would uphold the Constitution and particularly respect the Second Amendment. That he says he's going to do doesn't always stay pat, but I think he's somebody that we can... First of all, he's the only alternative we have. And secondly, I think if we do our job, which means a lot of work, and we stay on top of this, and we keep reminding him that this is a key reason for the support he's getting, then we have some reason to hope that that's the way it'll work out. If it doesn't, we're going to be in a super big world of hurt, because this appointment is going to be very, very pivotal. Because he was the fifth vote, Scalia was able to leave a tremendous legacy. But he also realized that this was not being built out of steel that could withstand any kind of heat. This was a legacy that could be undone as soon as he's gone with a judge of the opposite point of view. And certainly if they had anywhere near the kind of force of personality, the charm that he did, it could easily happen that we would see an undoing of Scalia's legacy. So we have, I'm afraid, politically speaking, the future of the country at stake in this election, and it's not going to be pretty if we lose it. Just if you haven't been motivated, Donald Trump doesn't really light your fires, and I get that. Can you imagine what it's going to be like listening to the voice of Hillary Clinton for the next 4 years? That should motivate anybody.
Yeah, that's a terrorist watch list for me, to be honest. We got to wrap up here shortly, and it's been so good having you on. But how can our listeners obtain more information about Gun Owners of America and your writings? Can you give us a website?
I appreciate you bringing that up. If folks go to gunowners.org, there's all kinds of information there, and most particularly, there's an opportunity to get for free the alerts that we put out dealing with what's happening on Capitol Hill, and embedded in those alerts, we have email that you can very easily, with a couple of clicks, send off to your member of Congress, and that has been probably the most significant thing that we've been able to do, and has resulted in redirecting the Congress from moving against the Second Amendment to finally ending up where they need to be, where they ought to be. So it is a tremendously important tool. Please do go to gunowners.org and sign up for the alerts.
Larry, we want to thank you once again. It's always our esteemed pleasure having you on the show. God bless you and yours.
It's my pleasure to be with you guys. Thanks so much for having me, and look forward to being with you again. I suspect you're going to have a lot to talk about in the days to come.
Yes. And this is J.D. Menear and our host, Rick Trader, coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, and AM/FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions.
We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we're trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers. 9/11. It's a day that will go down in our history as the most horrific and destructive scene ever to happen on American soil. It will also be, for most Americans who witnessed it either up close or simply watched in horror on TV, America, to participate in a national memorial I call the United Action of Prayer this coming 9/11 and every 9/11 from then on. United Action of Prayer is simply every American stopping whatever they are doing for 1 minute at precisely 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. to either observe 1 minute of silence or pray in memory for the 9/11 victims and their families, and perhaps a prayer of gratitude for living in a country where even 9/11 could not at all weaken the spirit of our great nation. If you're in a crash and have little cash, come to AJ Auto Body. We handle insurance claims fast, and repairs are guaranteed to last at AJ Auto Body. Come check us out, and without a doubt, you'll be satisfied. That's AJ Auto Body, 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. Family owned and operated for 30 years. We are a fully licensed and insured auto repair facility located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. We are your friend in the business. So stop in for a free estimate or call us at 856-251-0096. Check us out on the web at www.ajautobody.net. That's where you'll find our specials, discounts, and coupons. For all your car needs, come to AJ Auto Body, located at 1345 Delsey Drive in Deptford, New Jersey. 856-251-0096.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. we're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, www.ccrsnetwork.com, www.ccrshow.com. In the mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m., log on to www.roarradio.net. At 9 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com, and you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest, James Phillips, is Senior Research Fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation. He has written extensively on regional issues and international terrorism since 1978. Since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, Phillips has written extensively on the global war against terrorism and its implications for U.S. policy in the Middle East, and he's testified numerous times before congressional committees. Mr. Phillips has been interviewed frequently and appeared on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox News Channel, CNN, C-SPAN, MSNBC, National Public Radio, and the Voice of America. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, James.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Our radio audience would love to get your take on this past weekend's massacre in Orlando by the Islamic terrorist Omar Mateen. Please start out with your reflections on this worst jihadist terror event on our shores since 9/11.
Well, I think it's fair to say that although we don't know everything, it appears that Mr. Mateen was inspired, but probably not directed by the Islamic State. It seems he had his first wife, who he subsequently left him, said that she thought he had some mental problems. He was constantly beating her and was not, in the right frame of mind in general. And it appears he is not that knowledgeable about Islamic ideology because at one point or another he's expressed sympathy for the goals of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Hezbollah. And, many of your listeners will know that Hezbollah is a Shiite organization that basically does Iran's bidding, while the other two are adamantly opposed to Iran. And that suggests that what he was attracted to was the violence that these groups inflict on their victims, rather than any deep understanding of the ideology. And that is kind of emblematic of a lot of the very impressionable young Muslims that flock to the banners of the Islamic State. they don't know that much about the ideology, but many of them, especially the ones from Europe, have criminal backgrounds, and many of them were gang members, and essentially were looking for a bigger gang, one that would provide a satisfying narrative that would give them some form of kind of personal redemption from a very alienated history. Many of these people did not assimilate into the societies they were born in, and had a hatred of those societies, and that appears to be perhaps one of the motives of Mr. Martin as well.
Well, that makes sense to me. It's not working well in Europe, and it's not working well in the United States. Why is it important, Jim, for our federal government to know and be able to identify radical Islamic terrorism? And what have been the far-reaching consequences of this Obama administration? They're purging the very phrase from what's being used through the defense, security, and intelligence gathering agencies. Talk about that.
Well, I think the first step in defeating an enemy is defining that enemy. And if you have the wrong definition in the beginning, you're probably not going to win that war. And I think one of the problems is that this administration is so politically correct. It doesn't admit we're fighting a war against terrorism. Instead, in the first year of the administration, it redefined that war to be that we're engaged in overseas contingency operations against violent extremists in order to avert man-caused disasters. In other words, terrorism. But if you can't bring yourself even to identify the enemy, then I think you're a long way from defeating that enemy. So it's very important, and also because by saying our enemy is this ideology, it leaves open the possibility of cooperating with Muslims who are threatened by this ideology in order to defeat it. But in the absence of any, credible definition, I think many Americans are leaping to a conclusion that, our enemy is the Islamic religion rather than this ideology, and that would be the beginning of an endless war. If we're going to defeat Al-Qaeda and ISIS, we need good intelligence to ferret these people out, and that intelligence is going to come from Muslims. And we've already seen this paradigm of working with Muslims against these Islamist extremist organizations. We've seen it work in Afghanistan, where we partnered with the Northern Alliance against the Taliban. And the Taliban was extremely unpopular, but maintained itself in power through intimidation. We also saw this paradigm work against Al-Qaeda in Iraq during the surge, in which the U.S. troop surge enabled an Iraqi surge, which flipped many of the Sunni Arab tribes in western Iraq, and they turned against Al-Qaeda with a vengeance. And by the time we left in Iraq in 2011, Al-Qaeda was decimated. Unfortunately, we didn't leave trainers, advisors, and counterterrorism forces behind, and that enabled the rise of ISIS.
Well, please hold that thought, if you would, James. We're coming up against a hard commercial break, and it'll go for just a couple minutes, and we want to bring you right back, okay?
Okay.
And we're coming to you live. This is J.D. Meneer with our host, Rick Trader, from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios. WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, and AM, FM 24/7.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know?
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with J.D. Minier and yours truly, Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of our show, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at midnight, please log on to redstatetalkradio.com. And our guest this segment is Jim Phillips. He's a Middle East expert from the Heritage Foundation. Jim, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
Jim, it seems like whenever we have one of these mass shootings, like what happened in Orlando, like what happened in San Bernardino, the media, the left-leaning thinkers in this country want to turn this into an excuse. Oh, it's a lone wolf. Like that makes it okay. Or that's a justification. Or it doesn't represent all Muslims. But it seems like this idea of lone wolf, these people get their ideas from somewhere, and it doesn't make it less of a threat.
That's right. Ideas have consequences, as a conservative writer, Richard Weaver, wrote. And in order to defeat these ideas, Muslims must be convinced that these ideas have bad consequences, not for us, because they don't really, a lot of them don't care for us if we're non-Muslims. In fact, they're taught, some of them are taught to hate us, if not to stay away from us. But they must be convinced that these, what I call Islamist totalitarian ideas, have bad consequences for Muslims. And, wherever these people come to power, they immediately alienate Muslims that are forced to live under their harsh version of Sharia Islamic law.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, by then it's too late, because it just takes you don't have to be a majority to dominate if you're heavily armed and you're fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these lone wolves take on board these ideas and they act on them. And I don't even like to call them lone wolves, because I think that makes them gives them too much credit. I prefer to call them stray dogs.
Jim, also you and JD were talking about this guy Martine having mental problems, and it seems to me is somebody that's straight in the brain doesn't go into a nightclub and start shooting up the place. And if you want to look at, experts will probably tell you 10% of any population has mental problems. I mean, this seems to be a breeding ground for terrorists.
Yeah, I think it really is, because especially young people that spend a lot of time playing video games, shoot 'em up games, and they see this as in their fantasies as a chance to be a holy warrior and kill for God, but despite the promises of this ideology that promises to bring heaven to earth, what really happens is they bring hell to earth. And ISIS is banking on reaching out over the internet and inspiring people, and they don't really care, how if they've actually bought into the ideology, as long as they take action in ISIS's name.
Jim, this is JD again, and I want to get back a little bit to what you left us with at the break on Iraq. And when Obama left Iraq, I think they went from having the world's strongest Air Force umbrella of protection, which was our United States Air Force, to them virtually not having any fighter jets at all. And can you give our listeners your views on what's going on in the Middle East right now, starting up there with Iraq and Syria? Because I know you're an expert on this. You've studied it for decades. And can you give us a synopsis of what's going on over there?
Well, I think a lot of the borders, a lot of the countries that were drawn by European colonial powers after World War I are melting down into their composite parts, and many of these borders did not correspond to the tribal or ethnic mosaic that is in the Middle East. And so we have cross-cutting loyalties that are being exploited by outside powers in places like Iraq and Syria, where you have Iran, which sees itself as the vanguard of Islamic revolution, especially for Shiites, polarizing Iraq and Syria. And then you have these Sunni jihadists, many of them financed by private individuals in the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, that see themselves as the cutting edge of Islamic revolution, and the opposite pole, the Sunni pole, to the Shia revolutionary regime in Iran. And that struggle is intensifying, and it's tearing Iraq and Syria apart. And I would just say these are two versions of totalitarian Islam, the Shiite and the Sunni version, and they're fighting to the death in Iraq and Syria today. And the fact that they're based on religious the religion of Islam confuses Americans, but I think it's best to see them in terms of totalitarian ideology, such as the Nazis, who promised heaven on earth in Germany and delivered hell on earth, or the Soviet communists who promised a workers' paradise that was in reality a hell on earth for Soviet workers. And now we have, the Iranian Shiite and the ISIS Sunni versions of this heaven on earth. And as like with the Nazis, with the Soviets, it just brings war and destruction.
Yeah, and to the tune of about 28,000 people, I think, last year I was reading. And what strategic steps do you think this next president of the United States should take in the Middle East? I mean, starting in January 2017, what would you? And we got to wrap up here real shortly. But can you give us a brief summary there?
Well, first and foremost, we need to remember who our friends are, and that I would say is especially number one, Israel, which is the only democracy and the only reliable ally we have. Turkey, which is still a democracy, is drifting towards Islamism under Prime Minister Erdogan. I think Jordan and Egypt are two other important allies that this administration has neglected, and the next one should enhance relations with. And first of all, and as soon as it comes in, it should avoid the denial that has characterized the Obama administrations from the very beginning, and realize that we're in a long-term generational war with Islamist totalitarianism, and denying that reality will only hurt our national interests.
How can our radio audience read your writings, attain more of your works? Can you give them a contact information, a website to go to, James?
Yes, I'm the Middle East analyst at the Heritage Foundation, and you can go to the heritage.org website and then look under issues, under Middle East or under terrorism, to read many of the things we've written on those subjects.
I want to thank you for coming on the Conservative Commando radio show once again, and God bless you and yours. But we're running out of time. Rick, I'm going to let you finish us off here.
Well, JD, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host, as usual. I also want to thank our other guests, Dr. John Shosky, Larry Pratt, our most recent guest, Jim Phillips from the Heritage Foundation. I also want to thank Mr. John Forsythe Jr. for working the boards. But, JD, I'll give you 30 seconds. We got about 30 seconds. Do you have any final thoughts?
Jefferson said that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And America is taken right to the edge of terror here this past weekend. We were, and that's why we have this show, telling people the facts. Rick, we'll just say God bless you and everyone listening to this show.
Yep. And with that, we got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you tomorrow on the radio.